everybody, and welcome back to Trekyards. He is Commander Calkins.
And here's this old Stuart.
Hey, that works.
Yes! I was like, is I'm going to commit to that? Will it work? It actually did.
So, we're here today to talk about the crossover episode of Lower Decks with Strange New Worlds. Yeah, Lower Decks makes an appearance on Strange New Worlds and vice versa, and we're going to talk about it today for you guys.
The one we're waiting for, climactically waiting for Thursday to... And here we are early. Yes, episode 7. There'll also be episode 8 this week. So Stuart, what do you think of Lower Decks, the shortest of the season so far, first crossover of the kind?
An absolutely fun episode of Star Trek, and I really enjoyed it. First time it rang a little hollow for me. Don't know if I was expecting more or something different. The plot was a little bit like, okay, so there's not much of a plot, really, honestly. They just had to get him back. But on second viewing, it's way better. It's way more enjoyable to rewatch, honestly. I thought it was amazing the way they did it. I wish they would have started with Strange New Worlds, though, instead of Lower Decks, because I think some people might be confused if they've never watched Lower Decks. Not a big deal, but it was great seeing them in live action. I love the way it all kind of came together, and we got some really good reactions from Jack Quaid, including the Boimler walk, the Boimler run. We got the so I definitely true to their characters. And some funny lines in there. Like, you notice how slow everyone talks here? I know, and quiet. Lots of great things. I really enjoyed it. It was a really fun episode. Probably up there with some of the best episodes of Star Trek. A lot of people are saying it is the best episode of Star Trek. Again, I disagree.
Who's saying that?
Quite a few people. It's up there in the upper echelons for sure. It's really fun. We've never had this kind of thing before. There's a few things I wish they would have done different, but we'll get into that as we talk about it. So, how about you? What was your first reaction to it?
Well, before you jumped on the best ever, I'm hearing many people say this tops in the top runnings for top crossover episodes, which I think is a field it deserves to be in anyway. So I watched this at like 11:45 last night, after having travelled all day, after having been awake for a long time. This woke me up. You know, I was just awake enough, like, yeah, we can get away with this, to watch it. I was like, right, we're doing cinema time, I'm back, let's go, let's do it. And I'm glad I did, because today's also been a busy day. No, it was really fun. And that was the point, right? I've done a lot of fan films, a lot of things where the nature of crossover is part of the story, you know, how to people's perspectives influence the story, because often that can be just the story. I think you were disappointed by that the first time, but that's all I needed to see, right? How the juxtaposition was utilised. I certainly thought from the trailers or the clips that the way it was presented, it was going to be they both appear and be a double act. So I was really refreshingly surprised it was Boimler, because while Boimler is also energetic, he's a far more grounded character than Mariner, who is far more boisterous. We love her for it. So having to take that first 20 minutes slow and gentle was really nice, right? It was a Lower Decks episode, which I thought was really fun to start with. It's like, oh, it's a Lower Decks episode, because it was actually a Lower Decks episode, actually. And they moved into Stranger Worlds, but they got to appreciate Stranger Worlds via Boimler. Then you got the double whammy of the two of them. Then it became a more hijinks thing, which is fine. That made sense. And then it became a how do we subvert the timeline, whatever. So it actually evolved in a way that was nice. It wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just another. Both did a phenomenal job. I mean, if you don't walk away from this episode saying, let's have a live action Lower Decks movie, I mean, they were both excellent. There was nothing lost in translation. They actually had a new performance. I actually almost missed their live action performances as soon as they got animated again, because I was missing 90% of their performance. And I was missing it. They were really, really good. And the way Boimler, this is not his full voice, like he's putting on a slight character voice, it's like higher, like he was really to add that in, etc. Obviously, every other character is played for a bit for silly, but getting the Uhura, hardcore stuff, the Una, he's like the reverse Pike from Discovery. It's like, yes, Pike, you're doomed. Una, you're doomed to success. Oh, okay. You know, that's now set in stone, etc. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, they had a Stargate, half Stargate. I mean, I like Orions. I love the Orion plot twists. I thought that was sweet. I was absolutely shocked we didn't see Tendi, actress, as an Orion on their ship. That was clearly set up that way to see her descendant. Could be her. And then and there'd be a twist, because you don't technically have Tendi, but you have the actress playing an Orion. And then you'd expect Eugene to play someone else. I was like, why isn't she in this? There was two secondary people next to the lead guy. Clearly one of them should have been the Tendi actress for half a day. So that I thought was a huge, like, there's your chance, right? a good episode of both, because it's both. It's not like Lower Decks DS9 episode. It was mostly a DS9 episode, actually. This was actually a both episode, which is really hard to do.
One of the things that I really enjoyed, though, was the animated opening. And I got to admit, the Enterprise looks so much better in white. I'm sure we're going to do a video talking all about it and how good it looks in animated form, because that's how it should look in live action as well, with the white texturing. But that was great. Even adding the little Lower Decks things into that opening with the slug sucking on the nacelle. And that
made
hilarious.
me happy. Yeah, that made me happy.
Absolutely. I think they missed a trick, though. I'm just going to talk about the animation real quick here. I think they missed a trick at the end. They should have all, I think, been in the animated series style, like the old school. And then as they were drinking the Orion Hurricanes, maybe changed to look like the Lower Decks characters. Because you get a moment where Ortegas is like, are my eyes big? Could have done something like that. Because they've already established in Lower Decks that the animated style is where it's at when they're looking at the pad for Kirk and Spock, right? I think they missed a little bit of something there, but it was awesome to see the entire crew as animated characters. We had got tease or word that you'd see Pike animated. So when the gate opened at the end and Rutherford and Tendi were talking about coming through, I thought you might see things from their point of view, and then it would look like Pike is animated maybe, but we didn't get that. So I kind of liked the way they did the ending. As far as animation goes, I think it was very cool to see all of the Stranger Worlds cast as the animated characters.
Two thoughts on that. Missing a trick. The biggest trick they missed, not one TOS pure Trek canon reference. Never once they say the ship's too big, the floor's too shiny. Born Up on the Bridge didn't mention it at all, which feels really weird. All they have to do is mention it once and then move on. So the fact they didn't mention it makes it all a bit worrying, because they've been to the History Museum. They saw it's not what the Enterprise looks like. So they missed that entire trick. Second, I was convinced by the ending, because, of course they were going to animated them. Like, you kind of know that from the premises, right? I assumed that the way they play the ending was that you'd see Lower Decks animated them, but before it ends, you'd have Tendi, Rutherford, them all walk in, and then they'd say, oh, so this is what happened after our meeting, because it's all in the logs. So they got to experience the epilogue to their own story, because it happened in the timeline. And they say computer end program, door opens, they leave. So it was a holodeck simulation. So you get to see them all in the style on the holodeck, and you get to see how they would, and then everyone gets to be in that scene together versus just them in the microcosm. I thought that was what they were going to do, because it would make more sense than the booze made them 2D. Like, it makes no sense. It's funny, right? But that, I think, would have been so much cleverer, because then you could have had Tendi go up to Rutherford, you could have had a bonus interaction that you couldn't have had otherwise.
What did you think of my idea about the animated series style?
They were never going to do that. I mean,
would you have liked to have seen it?
I would have said no until they announced the new animated series cartoons coming out, in which case, because you'd have thought, oh, there's no studio making that, but there's obviously R&D people making that now. Some acknowledgement of it, certainly would have made sense if they'd had, at the start of the episode, the pad with animated series Pike. Oh, the Enterprise saw it. Here's animated series Pike. Then they meet real Pike, and then they see... They could have had all three, right? It's like they could have shown that and had a TOS reference to actually have all four versions all in the same continuity, but they stayed very true to, here are the two continuities, Bush.
And there were a lot of quickfire references and stuff. We got the Riker, as he steps
which
over
was
the
an
saddle.
improv.
Yeah, it was. It's great. Also mention of the T22 tricorder, and Mbenga's like, no, this is a T20. Like, it's an earlier version, so the TOS one is a different model. I love that. Boots had the Delta and the star on the bottom. That was a beautiful touch.
And of course, the biggest, bestest one, Orion ship. That was an Orion ship.
Yeah, well,
it was an Orion ship. I was like, ah! They did an actual Orion ship.
Yeah, it looked cool. I did love the NX reference. I was getting super excited that we were going to see one of the NX refits, that they were going to go find one, and no, instead we get a piece of like a bottle in the floor of engineering.
Yeah,
I was all right. I was really hoping for more there, and I was kind of, when I saw the runtime, I'm like, they've been doing like an hour for most of these. I get the animated, is usually shorter, but still, they could have done a few more things, I think.
But it means they only did like 26 minutes of Stranger Worlds, because there's a lot of animated in that.
Yeah, there was.
There's a good, yeah. No, the NX thing was a giant bummer. I thought that was them who were going to flex, because the notion of how them talk about Hoshi and Travis, like that, to show the context of, we have our heroes too, is gorgeous. But Jesus, you've got the NX refit model that you converted for Picard. You've always seen the museum. Either show the museum from Lower Deck perspective, right? That's, you know, the art design, or go to the Fleet Museum and it's on Earth and it's whatever. I guess you're really far away from Federation space. I get that, right? I don't know how you would suddenly go there and come back. But my God, were they begging for an NX to be shown? I was really, really disappointed it was just a pipe. Really disappointed. Because they were absolutely setting that up. And they shouldn't have done it that full on if there wasn't going to be, like, the actual NX.
In actual, like, real-life naval tradition, when they do that kind of thing, that's usually like a door or like a panel. So I was expecting something more than just that little piece. So I was a little bit disappointed with that, but it's not a big deal.
It felt like an afterthought. Like, we have this idea, we can't realize it in any meaningful way. Let's do this instead. Or they could have a flyby. Again, the 3D model is there for Picard. They have an asset. The same company has the asset. There's no reason they couldn't have done a flyby or a flashback. Or, let's be honest, they could have brought one of the actors back. There was absolute, because that's what this episode was begging for. Like, we have told you the epic coolness of the crossover. Now let's go that one giant step further. Especially with LED wall. They could have shown the NX-01 for like 2 seconds with Admiral Archer on board, and it would have been really easy. Super, super easy. Barely whatever inconvenience you want to put on it. So that was big. But also, it creates another little canon problem, because, of course, now they've solidified, not that means much really, there's no Enterprise between the two ships. Because while they didn't actually say that piece was from the NX, they said NX-era ships have this material, and this is from our last ship. Clearly, this implies the same ship. And, like, there's probably was one in between of some kind. I mean, you know, it'd be weird if there wasn't. In some form, right? It's been like 100 years, 80 years. But it was weird to put such a large thing in the ground for, like, no, we are the two Enterprises between each other. But they did address, you know, other Enterprise logic of, well, the first Enterprise and dash what? Like,
Yeah.
Like,
what would come after the dash?
The stuff that was good was great, but they certainly teased a few things they didn't fall, you know, and like I said, 60 minutes, they could have easily have warped away to a museum planet, seen an X, boarded it for LED wall for 1 or 2 shots, going back, and it would have just really, and maybe there was a lecture with Hoshi. There's so much you could have done with that, like as a bonus 20-minute sequence. It would have been like blowing people's minds. But at least, you know, Archer doesn't get enough credit.
Also at the end, Commander Ransom, numero una, hottest first officer in Starfleet. And it's great because they're married in real life, right? Jerry O'Connell and Rebecca Romaine. Yeah, that was actually kind of great. And now on rewatching it, at the beginning, Boimler like slams in his closet really quick. You can see the poster. It's very quick, but until you watch the episode and know about that, and I love that you know, the Ada Spera thing being included and how much Una loved that. They put that on a poster. Like, that's just awesome. So
yeah, to see that sort of character break down at the end was very sweet. It definitely feels like a hard payoff, as in like a hardcore payoff to what we had this season, of course. Kind of shows why they couldn't stretch that storyline out, because we have a huge payoff in this episode, this season, right? So it's all in one moment. Would have been nice if it was a real TOS Connie, if that was Una in the proper uniform, the proper Connie. That would have been a nice tribute to TOS. You know,
yeah.
I've done this in a few films recently, actually, where they're setting up this giant, you know, warp-capable shuttle chase Orion nonsense. Oh no, we caught you. Like, I like setting up a fake scenario inside your own scenario and then having it abruptly aborted. So that was quite comical, but if they could have done a bit more in the middle. But I mean, the pacing was great. It's just that was their chance, right? But it makes you want to see them more. That's the thing. They were so good.
Yeah, and I'm sure when we do our live breakdown of this, we're going to have to go into all the little mentions and little Easter eggs and things they mentioned. I do like how Pike was like kind of taken aback a little bit by the nice hair comment, and you dressed up as you was for Halloween last year, and Pike's about to say something, he's like, early? Like, it was great, and just kind of threw Pike off his game.
Yeah, he was very off his game. He was straight in fun, handsome out humor comedy company. But there's more to this episode structurally than it feels like, because of course future knowledge. I mean, nothing's been changed, so this is a closed loop, right? Nothing's affected anything. and we know Pike can keep a secret, etc. So he now knows that yes, he may have saved an academy class and put himself in a wheelchair, but then to be remembered in such high esteem, it doesn't necessarily help the pain of the event, but it's got to put your mind at ease a bit, especially as the last time he was taken aback by an event, he had to undo the timeline change to save the universe. Like, that is going to entirely change his perspective on life. And I thought they handled it beautifully. And that's how you do it, the deeper meanings within the funny. Like, that was wonderful. Same with Uhura. Really nice to see that represented. The Spock thing was beautiful. I mean, handled wise. He's not right. It's weird. And he needs to be himself to do all the many, many things. And it breaks your heart when you see Chapel. It really, really, that was just, God, so well done. It's this inevitability of the future. And, well, damn. It was very good. Very well handled, I thought.
And I love how Boimler brought that up without meaning to, do anything wrong. He didn't know, and then he realizes that Chapel is the one that kind of changed Spock at this moment, and it's that can't last. And yeah, you're right. It is heartbreaking to see her reaction to it, because she learns that he's got to revert to his older self.
Which he did like.
Together, he's not going to be.
It's not like she didn't like that.
He's not going to maintain this change, though. So
nope, it's literally galactically important. No, it was super fascinating. Just, you especially if as writers, you're creating this left turn. As long as you have that correction in mind, and it's there, then you can go further to left field, because it and that was a really time traveling guy, and did my appearance here make him go weird? Did the radiation make him go weird? I need to bring this up. Oh, it's you. Yeah, and then for Spock to then address him, you made her really upset, made Christine upset. It's all very well handled, and again, grounded it in a really meaningful episode for their characters, which is the best way of telling these stories. I'm doing a project right now where, again, they need to be meaningful to the characters, otherwise why are you doing it, but still get all that fun, is really a challenge. But that's why the first half is important, because it lets you have those Strange World points, and then it kind of reverts a bit more to chaos.
I do love the animated not reference, but just silliness of Boimler saying, if you guys don't look, I can modify this to track the Orion. And then while he's doing it, his legs up on twisted up, and it's something you totally see in the animation, but you would never think would apply to real life. So the way they kind of included things like that were very interesting. I like that.
Yeah, the fact that and I will go back to that in a second, but the fact that how they addressed the timeline stuff was quite a nice way of doing it. On actually having experience and being I've got experience too, time stuff. Would have been kind of nice if Relativity Officer turned up, the same lady, in the background, someone watching. That would have been a nice reference, just off to the side, okay, we're fine. That, small thing, that's irrelevant, but that would have been kind of cool. But yeah, that scene was fun, because if you delete all records, did it happen? Yes. Do we know how? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you need to revert, you need to save the timeline. I'm sure he studied, he made a Orion in a bottle, but this stuff is so primitive, and he's not an engineer, but he does do a lot of engineering tasks as part of his, ensigning. It's really easy. And he did it. And it took 5 minutes. I liked the Orion be oh, hi. Again. Huh. Would have been kind of fun to have a multi-cat and mouse, And I was kind of surprised Pike kept agreeing to let Boimler do things, because he's clearly a bad influence. Everything he did went wrong. Not his fault, but to then let him change the ship, it was funny. And yeah, it's just funny stuff. Clever.
And the Orion scientist thing, and the whole, it's in our time it's offensive to assume they're all pirates. But I love the way that all played out as well. This is an Orion science vessel. And Boimler's kind of okay. That was very interesting, and how the guy at the end, the Orion, is yeah, that's all I've ever wanted, is for people to accept the fact that, we're not all pirates.
Because that was an odd mixed message. I know it was a bait and switch or swap expectations, but of course, you believe Tendi, but just like in Russia, everything's in Russia, right? It's a joke within a joke. But he did steal the thing. He did run away. So he was doing the thing, but was he really doing the thing, or was he just taking opportunity? Was he really a silent ship? Because his wording at the end would imply that he does aim to be more, but he was still doing the same old stuff. So I was kind of mixed message with how... But his acting was so sincere at the end, so I was kind of torn on that. Opportunism is not necessarily pirating. He didn't attack them, and God, what bloody, even trials and tribulations, the same damn grain to the same damn planet.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that was awesome.
2 Enterprise trips with a much bigger Enterprise, of course, this time. Do you see that shuttle base, Stuart?
I did.
That shuttle hangar.
That was cool, though, to have them in the shuttle and have the other shuttle like going by and get that shaking kind of vibe going on, because it felt like a, aircraft carrier type deal.
Don't think that shuttle bay would even fit. Is that the entire size of the secondary hull? And those shuttles are bigger too.
We've had that issue before with many things.
It definitely tells you it's not visual canon if the shuttle bay is. Because we were hoping they would play that game up until the end and then show a normal size shuttle bay, but it was you saw racks. I mean, it was JJ through and through, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But good to see. I mean, finally, it took us 2 years.
Why are the shuttles launching? One launched, and then another one launched. Where are they going? They're at the planet to study that thing. They're not shuttles down there parked. They're not like survey teams down there.
Don't think about it. They weren't. They were just movement.
Yeah.
And how did La'an get aboard without anyone hearing? Because
that's the other thing.
All the doors open. Make noises, and she didn't beam in either. She's not stealthy like that. Doors make noises. Computer, activate 0 noise door.
You close it now.
But I really liked that. No one's ever caught me. Ah! You haven't met a nudie NSYNC, have you? No, that was funny. Yeah, and just see those two banter, because obviously them the shuttle is them out of the earshot of other people. I kind of wanted more of that to see how they refer to this timeline, because obviously you look at it from those two unique perspectives. One perspective, them being, we are so removed from this, let's have fun, / also let's not change things, but also we're ridiculous people, we can do random things. And then also, wow, from the future, God, they're going to change things. So it's fun to see them talk individually in their own teams. It's fun all round. And Ortega's did get something to do. I liked her scene a lot. She helped by drinking. But it felt, that was a really meaningful little, I liked the way they did that. Yeah. And boy, everyone's flirting with Boimler as well. That first scene with Boimler and Chapel and... God, flirting with Flirtison's there. Gosh, flirting with the future, flirting with Boimler? Crazy. I guess it's the hair.
The one thing I kind of thought, too, is with the Nausicaans being, like, ancient, like, like, a long time ago, Nausicaans had this technology. Because it's a time portal, did the Nausicaans go back in time and mess up their own timeline? Because they had the tech to do this time travel stuff, and now they just seem like kind of barbarians almost. So did they screw up their own culture and just by doing something in the past and changing things? Because I thought it was quite interesting, and that's something that could probably be delved into at some point. But
I mean, that is the question. I was not expecting Nausicaans or the Dom Drop, all that. Because, Nausicaans, we barely know them. We know them from NX. And then we really know them, they're average people. Love that disparity. Yeah, cool. Cultures change. It could be a random colony. It could be a number of things. They could have stolen from themselves. They could have been built from other things. I mean, who knows? It was wonderfully vague. Ancient Nausicaan. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And I do, every time you invent a god device, it's nice to introduce a way of nullifying it. Of course, every NX era ship has fuel in it. And it took this much to fuel a time portal. So just grab a pipe from the NX, you put it in the slot, you make a thing, yay! Time travel. So it's not really a limitation, is it? At least until the Boimler era, because then they know how to make it work. Yeah, well, actually, what a weird thing to say. There hasn't been this material in the galaxy in thousands of years, except our ships that are made from it.
It's just an alloy they don't use anymore.
Yeah, but it exists. Not hard to find. It's not hard to research. But in theory, I like that.
I also like when they try to synthesize it as well. It's kind of funny.
And that was really another great way. Spock, he had a hunch, he had a guess. He wasn't doing it the logical way, and it did not go well. And I liked that. That was really, really fun. Really, really fun. I kind of wish it blew up the whole room, honestly, like really big. Because otherwise, it was, it's not that big a went wrong explosion. Yeah, keep trying. No, it was,
I got to see the back of the communicator badge as well. So there's lots of little things in this one.
A lot of little things. Yeah, and someone posted a fun reference online that the comm badges made sense, but flip versus whatever. But obviously in Discovery Season 2, Station 31 used comm badges. So
yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I'm sure our breakdown, which we'll do later today, will be quite in-depth, and we'll get out to all these references and stuff. So, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit like. Don't forget to comment down below what you thought about this episode, and we want to hear your thoughts on this one. Now that you maybe had a chance to see it, it's still pretty early in the week. If your schedule was messed up by this, we apologize on Paramount's behalf, I guess, because it definitely affected our schedules.
As in, I could not move things. Well done that you could go live, though, because I was like, oh, Stuart, I'm sorry. And you did.
And I did do a first reaction on the day it came out, so if you guys want to go check that out as well, I'd appreciate it. I was going to say, but make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell icon so you don't miss any of those live first reactions or last-minute breaking news things. We do that stuff all the time, so if you don't want to miss it, make sure you're a part of the community here.
And while you're here, consider joining us on Patreon. Monthly service, any amount goes towards the show. Helps us keep doing what we do and keep loving it, because we want to do it with the passion and vigour that we have for years and years past. Or join the channel on YouTube. It's the join button.
Put your name in our fleet, by the way. That's very important.
Or one-time donations via PayPal, which is trekyards@hotmail.com. Or you can do a super chat, which is a donation per live stream, where we are live. Any amount, we'll read it out, we'll say hi. You can curveball us with a great conversation, or just say hey. We'll say hey back. Or super thanks on any video, on any part of our channel, on any sub-series, on any reviews, so many things.
Until those other so many things, or just next time, he is Commander Kirkings.
He's Captain TOS Foley.
Like it. Bye, everybody.